where Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad will be speaking shortly, just a few minutes. First, an introduction by Columbia President Lee Bollinger, who invited him to this forum. Live coverage here on C-SPAN.
As usual, turn off all cell phones and other devices that might prove distracting. Flash photos are not permitted, and the Secret Service has requested that members of the audience remain seated throughout the presentations, that is, throughout the entire program, unless you need to leave the auditorium. You may, please now note where the nearest exit is. You may leave the auditorium at any time, but if you do so, the Secret Service may not allow you to re-enter. As part of our School of International and Public Affairs and World Leaders Forum, we have today an extraordinary opportunity to directly engage the President of the Islamic Republic of Iran. We appreciate everyone's patience in dealing with the arrangements that are necessary in an event of this kind. This day on our campus is defined by various forms of dialogue, intellectual debate, and a remarkable student-sponsored forum. There will be many other opportunities to discuss the day's events in the weeks to come, among ourselves, in our classrooms, online with others beyond the campus, and with additional speakers who will come to Columbia this year to discuss issues related to Iran. For those of us in this auditorium, our responsibility today is to listen and offer questions in an atmosphere of civility and restraint. As you know, the rules of university conduct do not allow us to disrupt or limit the free exchange of ideas, as that would undermine the core values of our institution and indeed our society. I want to thank everyone in advance for displaying the patience and maturity and civility that are essential to freedom of thought and expression. And please do remain seated. Finally, a word about the program. Following President Bollinger's introductory remarks, President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad will address us, and following his address, he will respond to questions. Members of the audience are asked to write their questions on index cards that are available throughout the auditorium. You may write as many questions as you like, but please, only one question per card. Pass the cards with your questions to the nearest aisle. The cards will be collected by ushers and brought to the table at the front of the auditorium, where the presidents of the SIPA Student Association, Pat Contreras and Paulo Kluger, will sort the questions into topics and choose those that are brief and to the point. The selected questions will then be passed to me and posed to the speaker. If I think a question has not been answered, I may ask a follow-up question, or even pose a question or two of my own. Now, I am delighted to introduce to you the President of Columbia University, Lee Bollinger.
I would like to begin by thanking Dean John Coatsworth and Professor Richard Bullitt for their work in organizing this event and for their commitment to the School of International and Public Affairs and its role in training future leaders in world affairs. If today proves anything, it will be that there is an enormous amount of work ahead of us. This is just one of many events on Iran that will run throughout the academic year, all to help us better understand this critical and complex nation in today's geopolitics. Before speaking directly to the current president of Iran, I have a few critically important points to emphasize. First, since 2003, the World Leaders Forum has advanced Columbia's long-standing tradition of serving as a major forum for robust debate, especially on global issues. It should never be thought that merely to listen to ideas we deplore in any way implies our endorsement of those ideas or our weakness of our resolve to resist those ideas or our naivete about the very real dangers inherent in such ideas. It is a critical premise of freedom of speech that we do not honor the dishonorable when we open our public forum to their voices. To hold otherwise would make vigorous debate impossible. Second, to those who believe that this event should never have happened, that it is inappropriate for the university to conduct such an event, I want to say that I understand your perspective and respect it as reasonable. The scope of free speech and academic freedom should itself always be open to further debate. As one of the more famous quotations about free speech goes, it is an experiment, as all life is an experiment. I want to say, however, as forcefully as I can, that this is the right thing to do, and indeed it is required by the existing norms of free speech, the American university, and Columbia itself. Third, to those among us who experience hurt and pain as a result of this day, I say on behalf of all of us that we are sorry and wish to do what we can to alleviate it. Fourth, to be clear on another matter, this event has nothing whatsoever to do with any rights of the speaker, but only with our rights to listen and speak. We do it for ourselves. We do it in the great tradition of openness that has defined this nation for many decades now. We need to understand the world we live in, neither neglecting its glories nor shrinking from its threats and dangers. It is inconsistent with the idea that one should know thine enemies. It is consistent with the idea that one should know thine enemies, to have the intellectual and emotional courage to confront the mind of evil and to prepare ourselves to act with the right temperament. In the moment, the arguments for free speech will never seem to match the power of the arguments against. But what we must remember is that this is precisely because free speech asks us to exercise extraordinary self-restraint against the very natural but often counterproductive impulses that lead us to retreat from engagement with ideas we dislike and fear. In this lies the genius of the American idea of free speech. Lastly, in universities, we have a deep and almost single-minded commitment to pursue the truth. We do not have access to the levers of power. We cannot make war or peace. We can only make minds. And to do this, we must have the most fulsome freedom of inquiry. Let me now turn to Mr. Ahmadinejad. First, on the brutal crackdown on scholars, journalists, and human rights advocates. Over the past 2 weeks, your government has released Dr. Hala Esfandiari and Parnaz Agzima, and just 2 days ago, Kian Tagbash, a graduate of Columbia with a PhD in urban planning. While our community is relieved to learn of his release on bail, Dr. Tagbash remains in Tehran under house arrest, and he still does not know whether he will be charged with a crime or allowed to leave the country. Let me say this for the record. I call on the President today to ensure that Kian will be free to travel out of Iran as he wishes. Let me also report today that we are extending an offer to Kian to join our faculty as a visiting professor in urban planning here at his alma mater in our Graduate School of Architecture, Planning, and Preservation, and we hope he will be able to join us next semester. The arrest and imprisonment of these Iranian Americans for no good reason is not only unjustified, it runs completely counter to the very values that allow today's speaker to even appear on this campus. But at least they are alive. According to Amnesty International, 210 people have been executed in Iran so far this year, 21 of them on the morning of September 5th alone. This annual total includes at least 2 children, further proof, as Human Rights Watch puts it, that Iran leads the world in executing minors. There is more. Iran hanged up to 30 people this past July and August during a widely reported suppression of efforts to establish a more democratic society. Many of these executions were carried out in public view, a violation of the